had some questions about library centers after my last post. So, you want to do library centers during the 2025-2026 school year. And let me tell you, library centers are great because they build independence and self management. They encourage kids to work together and talk out problems. They allow for small group instruction or intervention if you need to do that in your library. And they increase student engagement and allow for voice and choice in the activities that they do in the Library Media Center. When you are first getting started with library centers, the first thing that you want to do is choose your objective. Are you going to focus on library skills or are you focusing on library standards? So maybe you are focused on skills like identifying keywords, or maybe you're focused on your state standards or national standards like the American Association for School Libraries. You want to decide on a number of centers that feels manageable for you and the amount of rotation time. So if you have a 45-minute block, you want to think about the fact that you probably have students coming in, and that's going to take up 5 minutes. Getting them settled might take up 5 minutes. And then thinking about that closure time might be 5 minutes. Really, when you think about it, you only have 30 minutes for center time. So because of that, do you want students to rotate to two of their choices and do 15 minutes, or do you want them to be able to do 10 minutes at each station? You need to consider that. Align your materials to your learning goals. If you're focused on STEM skills, then you want to purchase materials that will help students fine-tune their skills with STEM. Think about grouping. How are you going to determine which students are at each center? Are you going to group students based on ability, which is something I tend to shy away from because I like to mix the kids up? Are you grouping them based on interests, which is something that I have a tendency to do because sometimes you'll have students that really gravitate toward the arts, and so they're going to want those coloring centers. Or are you going to do this at random? Maybe they're picking straws or picking popsicle sticks. That is something you want to think about. Next, you want to think about how you're going to manage. When I first started with centers, I went as far as putting tape on the carpet. The tape had arrows and directions which showed kids how to rotate throughout the library to get to the next center. I used timers to tell them how many minutes they had left. Now you can put those up on your smartboard or your ClearTouch. You want to make sure that you have rules and expectations posted for each center. One thing that I find handy are those clear frames that you get from Dollar Tree and printing out the rules for each center and leaving them at that center. Another thing that you can do is you can put a page protector, those clear dividers, taped onto the table and insert your directions and your rules in there. That way you can change them out if you feel the need to add anything. Everything that you do, you want to have a visual for it so that you can point. When I started with centers, I found myself pointing. When kids had a question, I pointed to it. Even other students got in the habit of pointing to where the answer to a question was so that this becomes autonomous. Kids can do it on their own. You don't have to be in charge of each one. They know where to find the rules, the procedures, everything. You want to pick some centers that work for you. When you're first starting, I would say if you're giving this a try, I would start out with 3 that you feel like are high interest, high engagement. For me, those are things like the maker and the STEM, the coloring, the Play-Doh, the Magna-Tiles, things that kids really like. Then you're going to get that buy-in. So that they will really want to follow the rules so that they can do those things. And then you can start to incorporate more. Sometimes I will have one can do, like if I have research center, you have to do that one. That one is a must do. You have to spend one of your times at the research. Then you are allowed to do a can do. So that might be something you want to incorporate as well. Next up, how are you going to group your students? Are you going to be flexible and not fixed? Is this go where you want to go, or is this group yellow or green or group one or the caterpillar group go here? You want to see if you want to base it off of data like reading scores, or if you want to base it off of student choice. So think about how you want to group your students. Something that's really important is thinking about what you're going to do when you encounter issues. One big one is when kids are off task. How are you going to handle that if the noise level is too high? Some people utilize those voice meters that you can use on the screen that will tell kids, and then they'll start reminding each other like, shh, quiet down, quiet down. Just set those expectations, and then make sure that kids live up to the expectations. What happens if they finish early? What happens if movement is too chaotic? Consider these things and how you're going to handle them. Assessment and accountability. When I did a research center, I had an exit ticket. It walked them through what I wanted them to do at that center, which was, what was your question of the day? What source like PebbleGo or Britannica are you using? What did the source say about your question? Do you think you did a good job in finding the answer to your question? And it was very easy, like circle a thumbs up, circle a thumbs down, share your paper with the person next to you, and share your research, and then have them give you a thumbs up or thumbs down on how well you answered your question for the day. So that involved an exit ticket, a self-assessment, and a peer feedback all on one worksheet. And then lastly, just start small. 2 to 3 centers to begin, to really work out the kinks, get your rules and procedures in order, get kids to start to feel natural about moving from one activity to the next. Just continue to model in those first couple weeks of doing it. Don't give up. When you start and it doesn't go exactly as planned, the next time, try it out again. Tips, keep your materials organized. You can have a bookshelf that has all of your center items on it in plastic bins. At the end, you can have library helpers be responsible for managing a certain bin so that they take out any extra materials that have gotten kind of ratty or that are worn. And then just give yourself grace, because the centers will improve over time. The first time you do it, you might be like, this didn't work, that didn't work, I'm going to try this next time. And just like anything else with teaching, over time it will get better and better, and you will learn more strategies to implement with your centers.